If you're a female runner over 45 and you feel like you're doing everything right, you're training consistently, you're trying to eat well, you're showing up week after week, and yet the weight either isn't shifting or it's slowly creeping up, then I want you to know right from the start that you're not imagining it and you're definitely not alone. I've worked with thousands of female runners in exactly this position, and almost every single one of them comes in thinking the same thing, that it must be their hormones, that something has changed internally that they cannot control anymore. But here's the uncomfortable truth, and this is backed very clearly in the literature. It's not just hormones, and in many cases, it's not even the main driver. Because of your lifestyle, the small things you do every day, the way your training, your movement, and your recovery all interact, that is what is actually determining the outcome. And I know that it's not always what people want to hear, but by the end of this video, you're going to understand exactly why your body feels different now, and more importantly, what you can actually do about it. Because the frustrating part is that it doesn't feel like anything has changed. In fact, for a lot of female runners, it feels like they're doing more than they used to. They're more intentional, more structured, more disciplined, and yet their body is responding differently. And that's where things start to feel confusing. We naturally assume that if we're putting in the same efforts, we should be getting the same results. But what most female runners don't realize is that the system underneath that effort has changed. And until you understand that system, you end up pushing harder in the wrong direction. So let's start with what's actually happening inside your body, because there are real changes taking place as you move through your mid-40s and beyond. You are gradually losing lean muscle mass. Your body fat percentage tends to increase, and there are also shifts happening in bone density and overall body composition. And this is where most runners immediately jump to the conclusion that this must be menopause driving everything. But when you actually look at the research, these changes occur regardless of menopause status, which tells us something really important, that while hormones do play a role, they are not the sole driver, and in many cases, they are not even the dominant factor. And this is where we need to zoom out a little and look at the full system, because weight loss is not just about what you eat, and it's not just about how much you train. It's about something called total energy expenditure, which is the total amount of energy your body uses throughout the day. The easiest way to understand this is to break it into 3 parts. Imagine your body like these 3 containers. The first one represents your basal metabolic rate, which is the energy your body uses just to stay alive. Things like your heart beating, your brain functioning, your digestive system working. Even just sitting here watching this video requires energy. The second container represents your exercise, your running, your training sessions, the things you deliberately go out and do. And the third container, which is the one most female runners completely overlook, represents your daily movements. All the small things you do without thinking. Walking to your car, moving around your house, standing, shifting, everything that isn't structured exercise. Now, here's where things get interesting, because most runners focus almost entirely on this second container, exercise. And they say, well, I'm training just as much as I used to, if not even more. But what they don't realize is that the third container, their daily movement, has quietly shrunk over time. Because your lifestyle changes, you sit more, you drive more, you move less without even noticing it. And over the course of the day, that reduction in movement can add up to hundreds, even thousands of calories, which means that even if your training stays the same, your total energy expenditure has dropped. And I see this all the time. Runners will tell me they are just as active as they were in their 20s and 30s, but when you actually break it down, their day-to-day movement looks completely different. Their jobs are more sedentary, their routines are more structured around sitting, and those small shifts, repeated day after day, create a very different energy balance. So now you're in a position where your output has decreased even though your effort stays the same. Now let's take this one step deeper, because this is where most female runners misunderstand what's really happening. There's a very common belief that your metabolism simply slows down with age. But research shows that your basal metabolic rate doesn't significantly decline until much later, usually around your 60s. So if your metabolism isn't the main issue, what is causing the change? And the answer is lean muscle mass. Muscle is metabolically active tissue, which means the more muscle you have, the more energy your body uses at rest. So as you gradually lose muscle over time, your body becomes less metabolically active. And that means you are now burning fewer calories, even if your habits haven't changed. Think of it like this. Your body is essentially an engine, and muscle determines the size of that engine. When you had more muscle, your engine was bigger. It burned more fuel even when you were doing very little. But as that engine gets smaller, it becomes more efficient in a way that actually works against you. Because now you're burning less energy doing the exact same things. So you might be eating the same, training the same, following the same routines, but the system processing that energy has changed. And this is where you unknowingly make things worse. Because when the weight doesn't shift, the natural response is to do more and eat less, to train harder, to cut calories, to try and force that result. But what that often does is then push the body into a state of stress. And when stress increases, your cortisol levels rise. And cortisol has a very direct impact on your body's ability to lose fat, especially in females over the age of 45, because the body starts to prioritize survival over fat loss. So now you're in a situation where you're training harder, eating less, and yet your body is holding on tighter. And it feels incredibly frustrating because it looks like everything should be working, but the system is effectively locked. It's like trying to push open a door that has a big red sign on it saying pull. You can push harder, you can lean into it with more effort, but if the mechanism isn't working, the door isn't going to open. And that's what high stress and low energy availability do to your body. They lock the system. And no matter how much effort you apply, the result doesn't change. So when you step back and look at the full picture, this is what's really happening. Your muscle mass is gradually decreasing. Your daily movements is often lower than what it used to be, and your stress levels are higher, whether that's from training, lifestyle, or diet. And all of that together changes your total energy expenditure, your metabolic output, and your ability to lose fat. And this is why it feels harder. Not because your body is broken, but because the system has shifted. And once you understand that, the solution becomes much clearer. Because it's not about chasing quick fixes, it's about rebuilding the system. Firstly, before you attack me in the comments, yes, weight loss and weight management still comes down to creating a calorie deficit. That hasn't changed. But the way you create that deficit matters. It needs to be sustainable. It needs to support your training, and it needs to avoid pushing your body into a high stress state. Second, you need to increase your total energy expenditure, not just through your running, but through your daily movements, walking more, staying active throughout the day, finding small ways to move more consistently, because this third bucket, the one that most people ignore, is often the easiest place to create meaningful change. And third, this is the most important piece, you need to prioritize resistance training, because this is the one intervention that directly addresses the root of the problem. It helps you preserve and rebuild lean muscle, and it increases your metabolic output. It also improves your body composition in a way that running on its own simply cannot do. In fact, there are studies that have followed females over several years during menopause transition, and those who consistently engaged in resistance training showed little to no increase in body fat over time, which is a massive finding because it tells us that this isn't about working harder, it's about working smarter and targeting the right system. So instead of thinking that your hormones are working against you, the shift you need to make is asking yourself what part of your system needs to be rebuilt, because that is where control comes back. And that's where progress starts to happen again. And if you found this helpful and want more content that breaks down the science like this in a way that you can actually apply to your running, then make sure you hit subscribe, because most runners never get this level of clarity, and it's often the missing piece that changes everything. Now here's the part where most runners still get wrong. Even when they understand all of this, they still structure their training in a way that keeps stress too high and prevents fat loss from happening. So in the next video, I'm going to show you exactly how to structure your running week so that you can actually lose weight without feeling exhausted all the time. And that's where all of this starts to come together.